I want to thank everybody who's been with me, my Xbox clan.
When Kobe's going back to play Madison Square Garden, and he's like, hey, hook me up with dinner with Heath Ledger.
Like Russell Westbrook, that was a great feat the other day. I couldn't even tweet it out.
It's Coach Frank Vogel here, full of enthusiasm and positive energy.
Well, first of all, you don't smoke peyote.
And there was a couple games where I was at a hookah lounge. That's the truth. I wasn't smoking hookah, but I was there.
There was a time when the Israelites were wandering in the desert, and all of a sudden, bread came down from heaven. That's kind of what today feels like to have KCP join.
Welcome back, Bulls. Shout out to the family.
Big ups. Wow.
We're just kind of trying to figure out what the schedule is. We had a couple of games.
It was Christmas. It was Christmas.
As some have said, for reasons why they didn't do something.
I think we can say that it was Christmas. It was Christmas. There was a lot of basketball. There was a lot of, I think, feelings. I didn't see my family personally. I know that a lot of other people regretfully saw their families.
Yeah. We can do a handshake meme of it's Christmas for why we didn't do a podcast and why Adam Silver said that James Harden didn't get suspended.
Shout out to Adam Silver and his family.
that was just an incredible answer where he was like, so Rachel asked him about that and he says it's Christmas and then also it's a first
offense.
So,
yeah.
Every player in the league just gets one free pass now.
Unless they don't actually, because unless they're James Harden, they don't get the free pass, which was, oh my God, man. Let's just go right into that. We were at because above all else, I am rolling back in the Rolodex of this past week. We were at the game of the week, and that was James Harden's first game with the Houston Rockets. The game of the outside of the bubble. No, we're not going to go game
by the year. I meant this season.
This season, okay, yes, by the year this season, you're totally correct. But at the same time, we were also at the game of the current season, game of the week, which was James Harden making his season debut with the rest of the Houston Rockets against the Blazers.
With half of the Rockets that weren't quarantined.
Right. Who will be back, allegedly, middle of the week.
Yeah.
But that was the game, and I haven't felt, this is a very provincial take right now, but I haven't felt drama in the Moda Center that has involved the Blazers that way in a while. And shout out to James Harden for bringing that drama and involving CJ McCollum and giving us some really early season theater. I felt like it was not just the Rockets versus the Blazers. I felt like we had some real theater on our hands, and I felt like both Harden and CJ in both trying to do what they both want to do, both gave us that. And the overtime and everything else was great, but I just thought that CJ and Harden was just that was awesome. And with the trade rumors going around, was awesome. But I also have to say, that game also kind of drove home to me. I don't think either team is trading either one of the other one.
Well, we have to ask this question. And I know there was the report from Sam Amick at The Athletic, who is one of the most legit guys in the business, that James Harden has expanded his list of teams that he wants to go to from just Brooklyn and Philly to now include Portland and Boston. And that's kind of where all this started. Does he actually want to come to Portland? Or is this like when Anthony Davis tried to get a trade to the Lakers and then people got mad that he was basically tampering, and then they leaked that, oh no, there's 3 other teams, and it was the Bucks and the Clippers and these other teams that didn't have anything to trade for him or that would never be interested in trading for him. Is this that kind of situation where he doesn't want to just seem like he's trying to get to Brooklyn, and so they let a couple of other teams get out that are on the list that have no chance of actually doing a deal?
I think it's definitely partially that. But I also do think that there's a real possibility here that Harden just stays where he is.
I do too. And honestly, like, I watched that game, and then also just, I know they lost to Denver tonight, but I have not seen a teammate that he has that good of chemistry with on the court as Christian Woods in the entire time that he's been in Houston. That might just be kind of worth, especially like once John Wall cuts back, if he looks okay, like that might be worth just riding out for him for a little bit.
Yeah, Wood has game, and like he can go. He's a real inside-outside big, which, come to think of it, Harden has never had.
No,
like he's had inside bigs, he's had dive bigs, like Dwight, like Capella.
You know what this is kind of like? This is kind of like what would have happened. I mean, obviously, he's not as good of a player as Chris Bosh, but if Chris Bosh had actually gone to Houston in 2014 like he was almost going to, this is kind of like what that would have been.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think that I think that this combination, it merits what they're doing. And if I was the Rockets and I was in the position that they were in, where you have no picks, you really can't do anything to change the future of your team immediately, why just be bad? And that's the ultimate question, is like, why are you going to be bad unless you have to be? And with James Harden under contract, you don't have to be bad. And I think that that's a real question with the Rockets. And while I was definitely down for like the dialogue about CJ and the Blazers and Harden to Portland and all that stuff, I mean, even CJ and pick swaps and all that shit, I wouldn't do it. If I was Houston, if I'm Raphael Stone, no way. If I'm them, honestly, the best deal on the table is Ben Simmons and nothing else. Like, if you just get Ben Simmons alone, you're set for the next 10 years. Realistically, I just don't see CJ and pick swaps and Ant Simons and Nasir Little and Zach Collins as a Harden trade. Especially when CJ is like, he's already on his third contract at this point.
Yeah, he's almost, is he quite 30 yet? Dame just turned 30 this year. Is CJ quite?
CJ's 28, 29. Like, he's not far behind.
They want a young player with franchise potential. CJ is not the kind of guy you trade a guy like James Harden for if you want to rebuild. Like that's like a Ben Simmons, or like if Sam Presti decided he wanted to get in the mix and use all his million picks to bring Harden home, then like Shea would be somebody that you would look at. But like, or even like Poku, like who's like a bucket, who's like just a guy who's just like a draft nerd weirdo. Like, just take a chance on a guy like that. Like, Portland doesn't have anybody like that. Like, CJ McCollum could be like a number one scorer on a playoff team, but I just don't think that that's what Houston wants to top out at. And like, especially when you have James Harden, like, why would you do that? There's no reason you would. So I'm of two minds about it from Portland's standpoint. Obviously, if there's a deal to be made for James Harden, you do it. But I have just been enjoying the Blazers Twitter civil war of the last few days, of just some people are saying that like some fans don't want him for stylistic reasons or for moral reasons because of the
the moral reasons are just fraud.
And then some people are just like, you're an idiot if you want to actually enjoy watching your team and you don't enjoy watching James Harden. Like, it's kind of, as with most things on Twitter, the dialogue on both sides is just kind of terrible.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's all bad. It's so. I love that there's emotion in sports conversations, but I do think that a lot of times when it becomes a guy that versus a guy that you don't know as well. It becomes this thing where it's like this moralization of my guy versus the other guy, and this guy is good and the other guy is bad. And it's just like, it doesn't work that way. Like, that's not how the real relationship works. And I just think that, yeah, it is hard, but I also think that there's a way to be like, okay, Damian Lillard didn't come to the league. He supports CJ McCollum. He loves CJ McCollum. I don't think he would ever say, you put him in a box, so let's trade CJ McCollum. But
do you think Dame would sign off on this trade if Neil came to him and said, we're ready to pull the trigger and Houston will do it if you say yes?
Let me be clear. Abso-fucking-lutely, he would. I listen. I love Dame. Dame is a loyal motherfucker. He will ride with anybody, and CJ is like his number one. But he's not going to stand in the way, in my opinion, of a James Harden trade. I just don't think that a James Harden trade is going to happen because it's too volatile. It undercuts potential revenue for years to come. When you're looking at this team and you look at, let's be real, there's been a little bit of hyper-focused accounting lately. This team has avoided the luxury tax in each of the last 2 years, even though we all know that they have more than enough money to pay it.
Yeah, the Blazers are. That's why they don't have a backup point guard. That's why they're counting on Anthony Simons to be their backup point guard, which,
it worked out. It has worked out the last couple of nights, and that's good. But you can't. I think the other thing, we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Melo has been shitty.
Yeah. I think our pivot is going to be he's just here for the vibes. The pivot is he's here for the vibes. The other pivot is sometimes the other guys don't have it. And you know what other teams have that are actual contenders? You know what the Blazers have had in the years that they were contenders? Especially as a team in a small market. They have had depth and they have guys they can go to say, hey, let's try something else. And I just think that Melo could have gone to the Knicks if he really only wanted points and a rule and shots. I think he's on the Blazers because he wants to show beyond this year. It doesn't matter. But I think he came back to the Blazers for this specific season to show that he could be a part of a team, that he could swallow his pride, and that he could be a guy that can come in a pinch that hasn't played in a week and be solid. Like, I realistically believe that Melo had other options, but did this out of his reputation as a winner. And I think that if he wants to impact that in a positive way, this whole thing, whatever is going on with the health and safety protocols, cannot Hopefully
be.
he doesn't have COVID.
Hopefully he doesn't have COVID, but this whole thing cannot be like an obstacle in his impact with this Blazers team if he's serious about being, a mentor, a solid player, an impactful person, which I think he's serious about doing. I really do. Like, I think if he cared more about minutes and points, he would be a New York Knick right now.
I just wonder though, what the leap is from he's willing to come off the bench. He doesn't need to be a starter anymore. And, he's willing to do that but, even in that role, at least in the first 2 games of the season before whatever this health and safety thing is happened, he was still the first guy off the bench. And I wonder what the leap is going to be from being willing to come off the bench to being willing to basically be a spot minutes guy who might get some DNPs.
Yeah, well, I can't speak to what the veracity or the reason is of this health and safety protocol is, but I will say if they come out of LA with 2 victories, it's going to be really hard for him to come up and say anything else. Like for real. Like he can't. There's not a lot for him to say if Portland comes out of LA with 2 W's.
Do you think Terry will actually agree? Will adjust? And because I thought this was pretty. I don't know if you were quite on the Zoom call yet. Were you on for Terry, or did you get on afterwards?
I got on afterwards, but I do have to say about Terry just before I hear anything about what he said. I do think that there is Melo was forcing the issue first couple of games, realistically. I do think on a certain level, if Terry puts out Gary Trent and some other guys, I do think that maybe after watching these guys, especially tonight against the Lakers, might make him a little bit more trustworthy and not just such a touch and shoot player, which that I think Melo can totally be the start of the offense for the Blazers. He just can't be the start and the stop. He's got to, and he can. That's the thing about Melo that I'm not ready to say is done, is that he knows what the right play is. He just wasn't making it in the first couple of games. And I just think, I think that he can. And I would like to give it time because there's not a lot of guys on this Blazers team that can do both of those things.
So tonight on his Zoom, Jason Quick, the homie from the Athletic,
we stand Jace Quick,
the OG. He asks Terry about giving Gary Trent big minutes tonight after only playing him 5 minutes in the Houston game. And he said, is it going to be a night-to-night thing? And Terry's like, Jason, what are you talking about? It's been 2 games. Come on. He got super defensive about asking any questions about his rotations. And I'm wondering, once the Melo factor comes back into it, is that going to even be something he's more defensive about, or is that going to be something I don't know. This is just it's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
No, we definitely have to keep an eye on it. That's 100%.
What else have you liked from the first week of the season?
I mean, the Nets, the Vibes Council has just been they have been. They're they're the Jedi Council before, the turn of the Republic. It's just they're in harmony right now.
Shout out to Spencer Dinwiddie's family, by the way.
They've lost 2 straight, though. We have to say, we can't say this without saying that they have lost 2 straight.
Well, but KD and Kyrie didn't play tonight, though. So
no, but they played the last night to my Hornets.
Yeah, there you go. That's the other dialogue. That's
the dialogue about my Hornets, guys. Miles Bridges. One thing we're going to start tonight is never doubt Clutch Sports.
Okay.
We're
starting on the Zoom, getting that.
Yeah. Gary Trent. I was like, Gary Trent, you haven't played in a minute. What do you think about Clutch Sports? And I was like, and he's like, Clutch Sports is the family. It's we
you
never
get in different rooms with networking.
Yeah, he's like, you rub elbows with people, and you were in Clutch Sports, and I was like, yes, thank you. We need this for LeBronWire.usatoday.com. But realistically, though, he and LeBron, I'm in awe of the way that they're able to just generate the narrative. And if you can sign up with those guys that can always do that, do it.
But yeah, so the Nets, the Vibes Council.
The boardroom has been in session.
I'm in now. Durant looks incredible.
So you're joining me because when you say I'm in now, you have to acknowledge that I have been preaching the Brooklyn gospel for like 7 months. Like I ever since the quarantine, I've been like Brooklyn.
Okay, I mean, yeah, you win this one. I will give you this. I have to take the L on this one. I was skeptical that Durant was. I think the reasons that I had for being skeptical were reasonable. I think that it was
they were
whether Durant was going to be able to come back from the torn Achilles. Obviously, it's early and they're load managing him, but so far he looks incredible. Kyrie, I'm always just sort of skeptical of for Kyrie reasons. I think the jury might still be out there, but he looks pretty good so far. I will say the Spencer Dinwiddie loss, as much as like we make fun of him for the Bitcoin stuff, like he's still a really important player for them, and losing him for the full season with the torn ACL, that's tough. But
yeah, no,
I don't know if I'm ready to say they're the title favorites, but
the Lakers,
or at least they favorites in the East. I would still lean towards like Boston, Miami. I kind of still think that ultimately those teams are more built for the playoffs, but they're going to be one of the best teams in the East. They might be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned what they're going to be like in the East, because they do remind me a little bit of like, I mean, you remember this with KD, especially when he was on those Oklahoma City teams.
Yeah,
where you could clearly see that there was something wrong.
That they weren't going to beat like the Warriors or the Spurs or whoever in the playoffs, but that they were going to have like one of the best records in the regular season.
Yeah, like you could see that there was something like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
that's kind of where I'm at with them.
I do think that that's true, especially with the fact that they don't have, and maybe this is an aging thing, but I'm really into rebounding these days. And the Lakers really
fundamentals.
Yeah, no, just rebounding.
Chest passes, 3-man.
No, fuck that shit, dude. Getting the ball after the other team misses the shot. Like on the very basic level, your defense sucks if you don't get the rebound. And the Lakers did that better than anybody in the league last season. They got the rebound when the other team missed. And I'm still looking for that team that, especially with Montrez now and with AD and LeBron, I'm looking for that team to out-tough them and outdo them. And because I really feel like that's the only way to beat them. And I feel like Utah, maybe Miami. I have to say, this Precious Achiuwa stuff is quintessential Miami Heat. Like, yeah. Precious Achiuwa.
It's crazy. They're like the new Spurs.
Dude, when I saw Precious at Hoop Summit, I saw him extremely, like, the one thing I could say about Precious Achiuwa is that he was extremely ripped and jacked. And that is clearly the Miami Heat mantra. Like,
he did not fail Pat Riley's body fat test.
No, not at all. Like, he was like, let's go. Precious. And like, he's like, he had like, in the preseason, he had like 15 rebounds in like 8 minutes or some shit like that. I don't care about his preseason stats, but man, I have to say, the rookies have been impressing me. LaMelo Ball, I know that LeVar wants him to start, but Melo looks like he belongs on the court. He played a big part in the win against the Nets. There are Anthony Edwards, who looks like he has a nice jumper to go along with the massive body. Like, I I'm just so happy that there's another NBA season. That's the biggest thing.
James Wiseman looks pretty good. He's the only positive thing about the Warriors right now. The Warriors are awful.
Bro, that's what we need to talk about. The Dubs suck. Like, they are bad. And you hate to see it. Because I honestly had them ninth. When I wrote down before we did any of this stuff, I wrote down literally the day before the season started. I wrote down my top 15 for every team, for every conference. Excuse me.
Is this an Eric's gambling corner?
Eric's gambling corner. I have it written down on this piece of paper, and I'll go. Okay. This is my Western Conference pen and paper standings. Like, this was written down before the season, and I just want to clarify that this was not something that I'm doing after the fact to brag upon my gambling expertise 4 games into the season. But these were my standings: 1 Lakers, 2 Nuggets, 3 Blazers, 4 Jazz, 5 Clippers, 6 Dallas, 7 Suns, 8 Pelicans, 9 Warriors, 10 Grizzlies, 11 Kings, 12 Spurs, 13 Rockets, 14 Timberwolves, and 15 Thunder.
Clippers at 5 is wild.
I don't feel bad about that. But Thunder 15, I'm feeling pretty shaky about right now. Like, I feel like they're better than I feel like they're better than worst.
Oh yeah, those. I think they're just a classic, like, process Sixers where they have the talent isn't there, but like they play hard. Like, they're gonna win more games than they should because they're gonna catch some teams on bad nights.
Should I shout out the Eastern Conference right now?
Yeah, I want to hear what that was.
1 Milwaukee.
Okay.
2 Celtics. 3 Heat. 4 Nets. 5 Sixers. 6 Raptors. 7 Wizards. 8 Pacers. 9 Magic. 10 Hornets. 11 Bulls. And then Cleveland
got blown out by 40 in 2 of their 3.
And then Atlanta, Cleveland, New York, and Detroit.
Wow, you had Atlanta out of the playoffs.
Oh, one of the things that I will say is that, like, as much as I'm very pro clutch sports, I'm extremely just not here for the Atlanta Hawks. Like, I hope I'm wrong. I'm just like, like the whole Trey thing. Like, I just like everything about the Trey Young situation. It's like proving to me how many points he scored on how few shots. I'm just like, I don't care. Did you win? And it's always the answer is no. And so Trey
Young is the steam face emoji personified. He's a bucket.
He's a bucket. He's a problem. He doesn't win games. And, like, I hope that he proves me wrong, but I am not in the business of trying to have him prove me right.
They're 3-0. You know who else is 3-0? The Pacers. My man Bjork getting it done.
Dude, Bjork. Oh my God. The legend. I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast and they were talking about they were going to try and, like, say this guy's name. I was, like, thinking to myself, I was like, well, Highkin and I already call him Bjork. So, like, why don't you guys just do that?
Yeah, he's the Icelandic art rock musician Bjork.
The funniest thing about Bjork is how much the Pacers players love Bjork.
I mean, it's the same thing that you heard when the Raptors fired Dwayne Casey and elevated Nick Nurse. It was like the same stuff that you would hear, like, the guys say about Nick Nurse, like, whatever it is about Raptors assistants. And, like, when the Pacers hired him, like, Devin Booker tweeted out, like, and he was like the assistant coach on, like, the Suns G League team for 1 season or something. And Devin Booker tweeted out, like, hell yeah, Coach Bjork, I love it. Like,
dude, you're totally right. It's something about the Raptors coaching staff that maybe it's the guaranteed health care. Maybe it's the fact that these guys can just work and not worry about losing their benefits. I'm not sure. I'm just projecting. But I have to say that it's so fun to have the Pacers back to full health, back to honestly, Oladipo was the least cool thing about the Pacers. And to have Sabonis back, to have their whole squad back, really, has been really cool to watch. And it's just good to have in the league. It's good to have the Pacers be good because Indiana, I hate to be this guy, but I also don't hate to be this guy. Indiana is so integral to the basketball culture of this country. And to have a professional team in Indiana be good rules.
Well, that's why the Pacers have never bottomed out, or at least they've never tried to tank, because I think they know just kind of what it is in that city. I will say that the Bankers Life Fieldhouse is actually one of my favorite arenas to see a game at. I covered the Eastern Finals the last Heat year when they played Indy with the Paul George, Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson, that. That's a fun place to see a game. The crowd is great. The arena's cool. Honestly, Indianapolis as a city, I know that the Indiana, the state, is problematic for whatever reasons. Indianapolis, the city, kind of slept on.
Oh yeah, I've heard that it's very slept on, and I've also heard that it's very slept on for sporting events. And it sucks that this year was supposed to be the All-Star Weekend, I believe, for Indianapolis, and so. Shout out to Indy. Shout out to our family in Indy. If any of you who listen to us are in Indianapolis, shout out to you. But man, I have to say that this first week of the NBA has been really interesting, and I do think, I don't think any teams in the West. I think it's going to be about a month at least. I don't think we're going to get until February until we can really say that teams are tanking.
Well, I also think that this is because of the short turnaround and the short training camps and how some teams basically just came right from the bubble to training camp. I think there's going to just be so much time before we can even
a lot of time
what any of these teams are, because you basically have to treat the first month of the season like an extended preseason. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. You've seen different games, and it's kind of interesting. There have been so many blowouts around the league. Basically, every Christmas game is a blowout, which sucked. But the first Blazers game was a blowout. The Mavericks literally blew the Clippers out by 50 yesterday, and then the Lakers blew the Timberwolves out by 40 without Anthony. Every single. Pretty much most games, the Bulls have gotten blown out twice by 40. All these blowouts, because there's these teams that are still figuring out what they are. Teams are still kind of trying weird lineup combinations, and I think it's going to be another month or a month and a half before we kind of actually have a feel of how good any team is or isn't. And then we might start talking about trades. What I'm really interested in is, we talked about how we don't think the Harden trade is going to happen anytime soon, but I'm interested to see. And maybe I have
and shout out to the family. Shout out to the family of the guy who said that the Harden trade was a verbal agreement.
Yeah, shout out to various Clippers bloggers who reported that it was a done deal.
Shout out to their families.
Yeah, you hate to see it. You really do. But that one might not happen anytime soon. I'm really interested to see, and maybe there's a precedent. I didn't pay that much attention to baseball this year, but I'm really interested to see how a trade is even going to work logistically during the season. Because once a player gets into a new city, they're going to have to go through a whole quarantine process. So for any, it's not just a matter of you agree to the trade, the guy flies in, you do your physical, and then he can play that night like it is normal. You're going to basically, if you do a trade, you basically are going to have to punt a week of having that guy available and also the players that you traded for him. So I'm really interested to see. I'll bet there's not going to be as many trades at the deadline as there normally would be.
No, that's a great call. And I think that might be a reason also why the Blazers aren't super keen on a trade for James Harden. I do think the fact that when you get to the end of the season, that a game or two could make the difference between you making the playoffs. I mean, at least in the West, as we have judged over the past couple of years, one game or half a game can make the difference whether you make the playoffs or not. That makes a difference between whether your entire body of work for 9 months matters or not. And that has to be something that is considered. And I think it is something that's considered. I just don't think that we can ignore that.
I agree. I mean, this is such an interesting, I don't know, I'm still kind of, I wish I had stronger takes for this podcast, but I just don't, I'm still kind of collecting my thoughts about all of the teams so far. I just don't really
I mean, Detroit, I think we can say Detroit sucks.
Yeah, Detroit's bad. The Bulls are terrible.
The Bulls, oh man. That, I have to say, shout out to the Cavs and their families. They deserve this.
Yeah, they deserve this week before of being last year's early season Timberwolves.
Yes, they deserve this. Sexland deserves this.
We got the Clutch Points graphic. Clutch Points is on board with Sexland.
I'm all about it. I'm all about Sexland. Shout out to the Cavs. That's totally cool. I'm not as enthusiastic about anybody in the West because I feel like the entire Western Conference is just going to be, it's going to be this the whole year. Right now,
the Lakers are going to walk to the title again.
Yeah, but as we look at the standings, it's Pelicans, Clippers, Suns, Jazz, Blazers, Kings, Timberwolves, Spurs, Lakers. I mean, yes, I think no, the Spurs are kind of nice. I don't think that it's going to be yes, the Lakers will be the best team because they are the best team. It's going to be a lot messier, I think, than we all think. I just think it's not going to be all that far apart, and I just don't. I'm not ready to be well, the Lakers are going to cruise. They are going to cruise. They do have the best team, but I don't see it being as easy as we are all making it out to be.
What do you think about? First of all, shout out to John Morant's family. I hope that injury isn't.
It sounded like it's not broken, which is great. And so that sound if it's a sprain,
he'll be back in a couple weeks, hopefully.
Maybe a month, but which is great though. We have to say, open your third eye. Great for the Memphis tanking / consolidation plan of 2021.
If they could pair Ja with Cade Cunningham,
yeah, exactly. This is where it's at right now for the Grizz. They're in last year was cool and a fun time. They are in no way trying to win this season.
They're that Phoenix team. What the year that they had Isaiah Thomas or not Isaiah Thomas.
The year before they had those guys.
The Dragic Bledsoe year where you were about the Miles Plumlee life.
Right. When they were almost
chats of all time.
Right. That is a legendary G chat. For those that don't know, it was 2013, a fall night. I was watching preseason League Pass, and I just said to Highkin in a G chat, I'm about that Miles Plumlee life. Little did I know that he would become a burner and drop so much acid that he would be out of the NBA. But I love Miles Plumlee. He has a lot of hops. And he's
that was the year that I was at USA Today. And we did our weekly power rankings and MVP ladder. That we would just submit and it was me, Sam, Jeff, and then like all of the NBA beat writers from the Gannett papers. So like this is when Candace was still in Indy, so it was like her and like whoever the Suns beat writer.
Right. The whatever what is it? Desert? No.
It was like the Arizona
AZ Republic. Yeah, AZ Republic.
Like,
that's what it is.
It was like whatever cities like they're that's in. So it was like 8 or 9 people. We each submitted our NBA like our MVP rankings. After the first week of the season, I talked about this with Adi, and he was fully on board with it because Adi was my editor at the time.
Shout out to Adi.
That's the homie. I put Miles Plumlee number 1 on my MVP rankings because that was like the week that the Suns were like undefeated to start the season. They had a couple of big.
He shot like 100% that week.
Yeah.
Like I remember he had like nobody had a higher effective field goal percentage in the league than Miles Plumlee because he played the Blazers in that one game, and I remember I wrote about that. So parallel timeline. I wrote about that game, and I was like, Miles Plumlee was rolling to the rim with no impediment. Like, he was just rising and dunking. And I remember I went to the Blazer game the next night, and, like, Terry Stotts was like, I saw your tweet about Miles Plumlee. And I was... Is
that when it began?
That was when the third eye was opened by me that Terry Stotts is... That Terry Stotts is always looking at my tweets. And therefore, not only is Terry looking at my tweets, everybody on the Blazers is looking at my tweets.
Terry, are you subscribed to the Patreon? If you're subscribed to the Patreon, shout out to the family.
Shout out to the family, Terry. We love you.
Terry's honorary.
Terry's family.
Yeah.
Terry's for sure family.
Yeah. But, yes, but my point was that Phoenix team that was like way better than expected, that was supposed to be bad. That's kind of to me what Memphis was last year. I still like them long term because obviously Ja is awesome, and Jaren Jackson, whenever he gets healthy, I still really like. And like, but I still
they let Josh Jackson go to Detroit. Like they didn't fucking try to do anything with that. Like they didn't do anything like
they should
really
have cut,
dumb.
I'll say it. They shouldn't have cut Mario Hezonja.
They turned Mario Hezonja into Desmond Bane, who had like a bunch of threes tonight for them. So like, and like, shout out to I we are the king draft Twitter haters, but Desmond.
Shout out to Cosmos. Shout out to Ricky. Those are the homies.
Yeah, shout out to Jackson Frank. He's good too as well. But Desmond Bane had 2 3-pointers tonight, which is one of the draft Twitter guys of the year. But they got him in the Hezonja deal. So that was part of the Cantor Hezonja swap with the 3 teams.
But Hezonja ended up in Memphis. They cut him, and they shouldn't have cut him. For the vibes. You got to keep him for the vibes. He's like the worst NBA player I've ever seen, but you got to keep him for the vibes.
Yeah. The thing about the Grizzlies is that they have a lot of vibes.
Did you see Hezonja today on Twitter when it was like the NBA Central or like Legion, or one of those accounts aggregated something that Quick wrote out of context, and Quick retweeted it and was like, this NBA Central account is terrible aggregation. It's irresponsible. And then Mario Hezonja replies to him and is like, hell yeah, Jason, now you know what's up. 1 year with Mario did you good.
Oh.
So that leads me to believe that there was a conversation between Jason Quick and Mario Hezonja at some point on the road last year. I might have to ask Jason about this at some point.
I guarantee you that did not happen, and that Hezonja just said that because NBA Central tweets about him a lot because he's his top 5 pick, and it's not warranted, but it happens, and I guarantee you that I will bet you Sean's gambling corner right now. I will bet you $10 that Hezonja and Jason Quick have never had a conversation about any of that.
You're probably right about that. I wish Mario was good because he's one of the most delightful guys to talk to in the league.
He's a good dude. Like I like Hezonja. He brought character to the team. He has a lot of experience. Like, he's been a lot of different people in the sports world. Like, he's been the phenom. He's been the high coveted draft pick. He's been the guy that no one wants to talk to. Like, he's lived a lot of different lives. He's an interesting guy. I just don't, you know what I mean? Like he's definitely interesting. I think he's a character, and I think I would love to have him come back, but Neil
O'Shea bring him back challenge.
I mean, the realistic thing is, like, until he realizes that he's not LeBron James, it's just never going to happen for him.
What Mario Hezonja will realize that he's not LeBron James. New Orleans? Do you have any thought? What do you think about New Orleans? I mean, obviously they didn't look good against Miami, but I kind of like them so far this year.
Yeah, I like them. I like the way that they defended in some of that Miami game. I know that they obviously tailed off big time, but I do like their team. I like the way that they're structured. I like their bench.
Zion's looking pretty good. Ingram looks like he might make another leap.
They're going to be in the mix. I think they're in the mix.
Always happy to see him thriving.
The mix is going to be big. I feel like with the West this year, and I don't think, like, and this is not even, again, no disrespect to Minnesota, but like, disrespect to Minnesota. We're not including you.
Yeah,
like we're not including you. Memphis doesn't even want to be here. Like, so there's two teams that are out. I just feel like the West is going to be a dogfight again. It's going to be I think Oklahoma City, especially if Ja is going to be out for a month or so, I think Oklahoma City is going to be in a position to be the Memphis of last year, where they're like, we're a month and a half into the season, and all of a sudden Oklahoma City's in 8th.
God, how annoyed is Sam going to be that he's blown up the team just to collect the most draft picks possible, and then they aren't going to be like,
obviously in a zoom out context, I totally think he's upset, but I don't think
Cade Cunningham is playing at Oklahoma State. Like, how much would it kill to have him play for the Thunder now?
If Shai is this good, then maybe it won't hurt as much. You know, like it's a thing where, yes, it would hurt, but if your guys are going against and you're like backline guys, God forbid you get lucky and get someone like Cade, you're back. It's not Brooklyn, but it does remind me a little bit of Brooklyn, where it's like, you have these guys that you're putting up against the best front lines in the league. At some point, that's going to be a good thing for you.
Yeah, I agree.
I think for the back line of Brooklyn, it's been a great thing. Like, all those guys are almost starter caliber behind Katie and Kyrie. And I think Oklahoma City, they have some better talent, in my opinion, than what Brooklyn had. Like, with Shai and Baisley in particular, and Dort, like, they do have guys that are like top end guys.
Was Kelsey telling you to be quiet?
Yes, she was.
Okay. That's the Kelsey appearance. We're going to have to do the Kelsey return. There is a storyline that we will not speak of on the free episode that is brewing with a individual who's NBA world adjacent that we've had Kelsey on to talk about before. That's also intersects with one of Eric's main beats as the editor of LeBron Wire. And depending on how that develops, we might have to have Kelsey on the Patreon at some point to dissect that.
She's done some investigative journalism
Already in the 2 days.
I have asked for an advance on the journalism, and she delivered. So we do have some.
That might be this week's Patreon episode.
We do have insights.
He might either this week or next week. That's going to be the Patreon.
Man,
if you know what story we're talking about. We're not going to mention it on the free episode because I don't want LeBron to sue us.
You already know. You already know if you know.
we should probably wrap it up there.
I think we should.
We just, we hadn't been on in a week. We needed to come back with a vibe check. We're gonna have an episode for the family later this weekend or something. We don't know when.
I think later. I think in 2021 we can count on an episode for the family. As it is, we are 3 days from 2021. So I think
we might have to do a 2020 calendar year in review for the Patreon.
A shout out to his family, perhaps.
A shout out to the 2020's collective family.
Facts.
I think that might be the move, and then next week we'll have Kelsey on to talk about the story and reported by the media outlet that shall not be named.
Facts. Well, family, thank you for coming. Happy holidays. It has been a fun week. A fun week. And a fun year, I guess, or not a fun year. It really hasn't
been a fun year.
It hasn't been a fun year. I corrected myself.
We'll see. Yeah. Shout out to the family. We'll be back with a Patreon episode. Peace.